first began, light has remained unchanged. Now man has created a new kind of light with powers and properties unlike anything that existed before. Laser light.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to 0x2C podcast. This is Ryan.
I'm John.
And so a little recap from last week. I talked about neuroscience, the topic, and how our brain sort of filters out certain voices or noises from the general public, I guess. And John, do you want to go over what you talked about last week?
Yeah,
Or last Wednesday?
sure thing. Yeah, last Wednesday. Wow, it feels like a whole week. Oh yes, Sudo has pointed out that co-host Ryan does not have his beanie on. That is correct. So let's see. Last Wednesday, I talked about first. There's a super exciting development using graphene and gold. It's kind of like this little sandwich that does this remarkable job of amplifying certain frequencies. So we could go theoretically from the high gigahertz to the terahertz range. And terahertz radiation has a lot of really cool uses. You can find that in episode number 4. And I also talked about a new catalyst that's been found that can recycle carbon dioxide and convert it back into jet fuel, which is super promising. So that's sort of the recap. But today, Ryan and I both have some more exciting developments because the world of science and technology never rests. So,
And a quick shout out to I missed the name, Soda Veloz 18. Thank you for the follow and the support. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, so today I guess we'll be starting off with John since I went first the other time. So
Right. I mean, if we have any fans that have been around since episode 1 and 2, you'll know that it was kind of messy when we tried to randomly generate who was going to go first, and that was hilarious. But I digress. So Ryan, let me ask you, what do you know about gene therapy? Have you heard of that stuff before, or are you vaguely familiar with it?
vaguely familiar. I only heard the term, never really looked into it actually.
Okay, no sweat, no sweat. That's so the gene therapy is actually a pretty simple idea, and the idea is that there's certain illnesses, especially like ones that are genetically related, or excuse me, have a genetic origin, I should say. That oh, hold on, sorry, good heavens, there we go. I'm fiddling around with the video settings here. Apologies, but the idea is that there are certain conditions that have a basis in genetics, and we want to be able to fix that problem, right? Because the defective DNA makes these defective proteins, which can be harmful to the body. So the idea with gene therapy is we target that defective DNA, and we find a way to replace it. And in that way, we can make sure our body produces the correct proteins. So that way, we can kind of solve the problem at its root. So that's what gene therapy is in its most basic form.
Okay. So that does trigger some memories now. Sort of like, I guess, picking certain genes to be expressed, maybe like on an offspring that you could.
I wouldn't say it's expression. That's a good point, though, because the idea behind expression is that the DNA is there, but there's some mechanism that needs to get the cell to actually look at the DNA. Because I talked about microRNA. You remember that from our, I think it was episode 3. I talked about microRNA, which has the ability to suppress gene expression. But with gene therapy, the whole idea is you can even replace the defective gene entirely. So that way you can get the body to manufacture the correct protein. That's the basic idea of gene therapy.
Wow. And Soda Veloz 18. Hola, Michael. Saludos de Estados Unidos. So, gracias por escuchar nuestro podcast. I'm not really sure how to say podcast in Spanish. But yeah, that's cool.
Well, I mean, considering how recent podcasts are, it might be a loan word, right? Doesn't I think different languages, right, especially for new technology, the loan words or at least modern developments will sound very similar if they're just cloned from English.
Right. But, I wouldn't be surprised if podcasts in Spanish is almost it's the loan word for it. But,
but going back to the article I have here, how familiar are you with? So I said gene therapy, and this article Okay, so Pseudo says, let's see, I think it's podcast. Okay, so we're probably on the dot. We can check later if we'd like. But basically, the reason why I brought up gene therapy is because there's been a super cool development in that some scientists have developed a potential gene therapy that can target deafness. So this is like the genetic version or a hereditary version of deafness. So if you had to guess, like how many people on Earth are born deaf, well, not born deaf, but they have like the some genetic condition that would cause deafness. How, like, what percentage of the human population do you think would have that?
Ooh, I feel like it's like less than 2% of the population. I don't know. I feel like it's a rare thing to have.
Less than 2%. Well, it's actually the most common sensory disability
What?
worldwide.
Wow.
And according to the, I was kind of surprised when I heard that, because I always thought maybe it's like eye, like, like a blindness or certain eye ailments, but it turns out deafness is apparently the sort of major disability here. And according to the World Health Organization, 500 million people have hearing loss around the world today, and that's expected to double in the upcoming decades.
Wait, and wow. Is it doubling just
Yeah.
because our population is increasing? Is that
I think so, because eventually, like, for any hereditary diseases, you'll have to account for the idea that as the population grows, the chance of mutation grows as well. Although, for anyone watching us now who may be more familiar with biology, the human body does do an absolutely remarkable job of preventing certain, Ryan, you said you took AP Bio many years ago, but like like from the enzymes that are responsible for reproducing DNA. There's a bunch of like security factors in place to make sure, like, oh, if there's a mistake, we can catch it pretty early on and prevent it from doing any more harm in the body.
enzymes are pretty cool. That's one of my favorite. I guess looking back at AP Bio, that was one of my favorite sort of organism in our body is our enzymes.
Enzymes, okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, enzymes are. I don't think life as we know it could even exist without the help of enzymes. I mean, enzymes are a form of catalyst, right? They make certain reactions feasible that would normally not be feasible, or that would take way too long. So they are remarkable things. Yeah, enzymes. So going back to the statistics I was talking about, so it says 1 in every 200 children is born with a hearing impediment, and with 1 in 1,000 children are born deaf. And in half of those cases, that deafness is caused by a genetic mutation.
Wow. Okay.
So 1 in 1,000, and then half of those are some, like, there's some genetic factor that's the reason for why they're deaf.
And a quick question: is this born with deafness specifically, or is it?
So they have the genetic factor that can cause deafness. So I think they might be playing a little loose here, but I think like some children are unfortunately born deaf. Others might not be deaf in childhood, but as they grow older, they will become deaf because of that hereditary component, that the mutated gene. And according to the WHO, there are actually 100 different genes, or mutated versions thereof, that can be responsible for deafness in life.
Wow. Okay, that's why. So when I said less than 2%, I was thinking of like people born straight up out of the womb being born deaf.
Okay.
That's
So you might be right. I didn't actually investigate the statistics too heavily
Okay.
for that particular instance, but I'm willing to believe you on that ground. So this study comes from Tel Aviv University. It's led by Professor Karen Avraham of the Department of, this is a mouthful, the Department of Human Molecular Genetics and Biochemistry at TAU's Sackler Faculty of Medicine and Segal School of Neuroscience.
Imagine having to say that like in an interview, like your
Yeah,
background.
but oh my goodness. But I mean, Ryan, I think we both understand, like in academia, like your title is like super, it's like a thing to be proud of, right? I always thought
That's
of it
right.
like, if you guys ever go on Wikipedia and you look up former royals, like the king and queen of England, and you look at their official titles, and it's like, the king of the something, 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 and it's like 20 something words long. And like whenever there's like a royal procession or some kind of event, there's always the guy that says, oh, and here comes the king of, and then it's like the title, and it's good. It's, yeah. So let me go ahead and give you some details about this idea about gene therapy. So what they've actually gone ahead and done, this Professor Abraham had the idea of taking an inert virus, or it's not inert, but it's a harmless virus, and this virus actually replaces the defective gene and enables the cell to continue functioning normally. And it focuses on a gene called SYNE4, SYNE4. It's a deafness gene, or a gene responsible for deafness. It was found in 2 Israeli families, but it has also since been identified in certain families in the UK and Turkey. And SYNE4 causes gradual hearing loss. So, I mean, you made your estimate, Ryan, on the idea that you're born immediately deaf, like out of the womb. But SYNE4 might be, you could argue, might be even more cruel. Like, imagine having the ability to see or hear now, and then as you grow older, having it, robbed of you. I mean, it's a very cruel thing if you think about it, to happen to anyone.
And it's slowly, right? Because over your life, you're gonna start realizing, hey, I'm losing my hearing, and it's sort of like an inevitable, I guess, thing that's gonna happen.
Right. It feels terminal. I mean, because it's almost like you're losing this invaluable ability to sense, but you don't have anything that can stop it. If you had but now with this research, they've done it on mice, but already being able to do it on mice is super promising for humans. I mean, most of these laboratory mice are intentionally chosen or designed in such a way as to reflect human anatomy. Of course, it's not 1-to-1, but it is close enough to the point where there probably only be minor modifications necessary to get this into human adaptable form. At least that's what I believe. Once again, Ryan and I are not medical experts, so don't please don't take our word if you're planning any sort of medical interventions.
All right, we're just giving our 2 cents. That's all.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's the whole title of the podcast, Our 2 cents. So what happens, the way this defective SYNE4 actually works, and this is, I think the audience might be interested in seeing how we kind of break down some of these articles. So I'm quoting this from the article itself that says the mutation causes, in the words of Professor Abraham, a mislocalization of cell nuclei in the hair cells inside the cochlea of the inner ear, which serve as sound wave receptors and are essential for hearing. The defect leads to the degeneration and eventual death of hair cells. So that's a lot to process. And I think in episode 4, you gave an awesome breakdown of how the ear works. Do you want to sort of remind the audience what the cochlea is responsible for?
So the cochlea basically has the fluid that's sort of in there, and you have these hair-like structures that are sort of fluctuating. They're moving with the way the fluid moves in order to sense, I guess, different signals, different noises from I guess when it comes to the ear. I think that's mostly. Did I miss
right.
anything?
No, I think you're spot on. The cochlea is also responsible for balance, I believe, as well. Right,
Okay.
our sense of balance, because that liquid. That's why, I think when people go into space for the first time, there's no gravity to hold the liquid down, and as a result, your body feels like a general sense of disorientation in 0G, although you adapt to it over time.
Wow. Oh, and a quick shout out to DealMind. Thank you for the follow. We appreciate the support.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. So what happened? So basically, in the sort of 0x2C podcast, when we do research, a lot of times, especially for me, these articles are already really nice versions of the actual research paper. But we like to take things, or I like to take things one step further, and I will try and pull the original research article or anything relevant to it to try and get more details. So that mislocalization of cell nuclei, what is that? I mean, when I first read that, I'm like, what the heck is a mislocalization of nuclei? Ryan, do you have any idea what that phrase might mean?
So can you say it one more time?
Mislocalization of nuclei.
It almost sounds as if the nuclei is just mislocated. If I were
Wait,
to,
no, I mean, you're not wrong. But so I had the same assumption, but we want to be thoroughly accurate with our scientific analyses. I went ahead and did more research. Like, is there anything relevant to that, like mislocalization? And there's a paper here. This is from it's like the Federation of Associated of the American Society of something biology. I'll go ahead and put the link to the research paper here. If you guys are so inclined, although it is a very dense read. And the title is The Mislocalization of Cone Nuclei, which impairs cone function in mice. Ryan, you gave a wonderful example of ear anatomy. How about eye anatomy? Do you know what your cones and rods are in your eyes?
not to the, I guess, no, I wouldn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in that other paper, like I don't remember which is which anymore. I used to know back in high school, but like cones and rods are sort of the receptor cells that are found in our eye that are responsible for translating the colors and the intensity of light that we see into the pulses that our brain can eventually process as pictures and images. So that paper also talks about mislocalization of nuclei, and it's exactly what you said, Ryan. It's the nuclei don't form in the right place of the cell, and as a result, the hair cells, like the little hairs you were talking about in the cochlea, deteriorate over time.
Ooh.
That's what a defective sign 4 does. That's why they lose their hearing over time.
Oh wow, wow.
But that's a spot on guess. That was a spot on guess.
Oh yeah, it's nice that they termed it in that way. Sort of
Yeah,
easy to
yeah.
sort of like put those puzzles together.
So, as I said earlier, it's a synthetic virus that they use to deliver the genetic material. And the actual mechanics of this, I guess they would be painful for humans as well. So this is shortly after the mice are born. They inject the virus into the inner ear of the mice, and where it enters the hair cells, and it releases the genetic payload. And that's according to Shahar Tiber, one of Abraham's students. And according to Professor Jeffrey Holt from the Boston Children's Hospital, he is a collaborator on this project or on this study. The sensitivity is remarkable. The sensitivity of the hearing of mice who had the therapy versus mice who didn't have the mutation are nearly the same. So you can like have a full recovery of hearing. So this is, I think it's super promising. And
Wow.
we'll have to see if they decide to carry this forward with human clinical trials, but it's super exciting to hear.
Right. No, that would change. I mean, especially it would help people that have jobs that they need their hearing. Let's say you're a manager and all of a sudden you lose your hearing. You can't communicate effectively with your teammates.
Yeah.
As much as
like sort of.
As much as I know today, you have to use either like Google Translate. I think that's what they have, is where you can speak into it, and then they'll translate it for you real time. But sometimes it's off when when they're speaking to it.
Oh, you mean like text to or speech to text? Like when they talk, it'll like get the English and all that stuff.
Right.
Ah, okay.
And I mean, the best form of communication once you do lose your hearing is really just texting.
Like being able to write. I mean, I guess you're
sign language
still,
and ASL.
You have it like an advantage if you're if you like in your childhood you're not deaf, but later on in life you become like you still have like at that point you're I wouldn't say like your brain has the ability to kind of work around that. But for people who are born deaf, you know what I mean? Like to learn how to speak, right? I mean, I've seen like some clips of how they do that. Like they try and imitate the way the lips move, and it's just an incredibly difficult process. Absolutely. So, yeah,
Right.
I think Ryan and I are both excited to see where this study may go.
Right.
But but in the meantime, for those of us that still have our hearing intact and are fortunate enough, please do take care of your ears. Keep the loud music to a minimum, and for the love of all things good, stop using those cotton swabs to get earwax out of your ears. It's a very bad thing to do. I'm guilty of it as well. I mean, I used to do this, but then I read the actual medical research, and you're actually making it worse. You're pushing earwax that would normally come out naturally. You're pushing it back in further, and that can cause an impaction. Yeah. Pseudo says I feel personally attacked. It feels so good, Ryan.
It
You
feels
got
so
to
good.
admit, right?
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like
I've done it several times. I'm lucky enough. My dad was like, "Yeah, don't use Q-tips in your ears. It's bad for you." I'm like, "Okay, okay, I won't." But it feels good. I remember trying it one time. I was like, "It's like itching a spot on the like on your back. It's that same feeling, but it's like 10 times better for some weird reason." So
yeah, it's I feel this is a bit tangential, but maybe like in the future of human evolution, it might be more like people who have a mutation that doesn't let them feel pleasure from scraping their ear. Maybe that'll be like advantageous, and then eventually all people will stop naturally. Like that's gonna take like millions of years, you know. So
I'm wondering like why like why not like I guess there's a certain nerve ending that really likes that massage inside, and it
that's
makes
true.
us.
I remember how I told you about those like those earwax cleaning videos.
Hmm.
There
Yep.
was a video I saw once. I think it was this Chinese woman. She was getting her earwax cleaned, and at this particular clinic, they took a feather and they stimulate like the side of your face here, and apparently it causes like the muscle around the ear to like open up a little or like to relax. So that way, when they
Interesting.
scrape the earwax out, it's it's one of the weird like to me it looks super satisfying, you know, just getting all that gunk out. But
Wow. And as much as I know, sometimes, I mean, well, I don't know what sometimes, but you need the earwax in your ears,
oh,
right?
absolutely. It plays a very important role.
Yeah. So, but, oh, and I'm sort of going to go off another tangent. Uh, with Q-tips, um, my one of my parents would take off the cotton tip and go
Oh,
straight because
uh-oh.
I don't, maybe it's like, like they couldn't get
Oh,
enough.
that's
Yeah,
that's 10 times worse. It's got to be 10 times worse. I mean, at that
right?
point, that's like a sharp object next to your eardrum. You know, that's also the other danger, right? If something like happens around you, like if
Hmm.
you're in a small bathroom and you're not careful, and you're like, and
Just
the door,
bang the
like,
wall.
yeah, exactly, like you've just busted your eardrum. I mean, that's a super painful thing. So, you know, just but you know, basically, TLDR, please, audience, you know, like take care of your ears. It's you know, they got to last you a lifetime. So take
Yeah.
good care of them.
I'm hoping mine at least lasts me until I'm 80. That's like if it starts going out that, I'll be like, okay, that's fine. I don't want to hear it, people anyways. I'll be at the age where like, man, I'll just be nodding my head like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. But
What?
I think I know like right now, especially in this current decade, things are terrible. But you know, one of our goals, like one of the goals that Ryan and I had for the Zero X2C podcast was kind of give you, you know, everyone watching a sense of hope, right? Like here's where the science and technology
Hmm.
is taking us, and eventually, like when we're in our 80s, I think a lot of these current diseases and you know things we worry about, you know, I think they might be things of the past. So who knows, maybe in the future we'll have like some regenerative therapy like I don't know, Star Trek, for crying out loud. They
Hmm.
have like all those fancy medical scanners, and they can like, you know, they can cure almost anything except death.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I think I have a pretty optimistic mind of like,
Likewise.
in the future, technology will be able to take care of us, hopefully. Um, but
Well,
yeah,
I think yeah, so I think that's all that's my article.
okay.
Ryan, how about if there aren't any more questions in chat, I think we should move over to what you've got on the docket today.
Yeah, so I guess bouncing off of yours, mine is about skin disease and dolphins. So in this article, the title is "Devastating Skin Disease Covering Up to 70% of a Dolphin's Body Tied to Climate Change." So this is we're going to a whole another area right now, John.
Where's the article published from?
So
Just
this is Science Daily,
science day.
and
Oh, I should. But Ryan, actually, before you go ahead, Ryan, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the article that so this came from technology.org. Just for those that are interested, I will go ahead and put that here. And there you go. Sorry to interrupt, Ryan.
that's
You
all
can
good.
go ahead.
And the source is the Marine Mammal Center. Uh, and it's okay. So, John, I guess let me just ask like you a question about dolphins. Do you know like a species of dolphin, or do you know, I don't know, any any species of dolphins out right now?
I mean, I know there's like the bottlenose or like the yellow dolphin, the bottlenose dolphin. It used to be I think it's gone extinct though. It used to be in the a river in China. I think the Yangtze River. But because of pollution, it went extinct. That's the only species I'm familiar with.
So yeah, so bottlenose. I'm not sure about yellow. You said yellow nose.
I don't know if it's yellow nose. It had yellow in its name. I'm pretty certain, but
Okay.
I might be mistaken. So.
Because this article is about the bottlenose dolphin specifically.
Oh,
So
sweet.
yeah,
Okay.
so the bottlenose aren't extinct. They're still living. They're being affected the most right now, and actually not just bottlenose, but this disease is happening globally. So it's sort of a pandemic for dolphins right now. And
Wow.
but maybe you guys have seen on the news about. I've seen it on several news sources about this disease. So I wanted to sort of read more about it. And so yeah, so let me. I guess there's 4 other dolphins I want to talk about that are pretty popular. If people are into dolphin tourism, but there's spinner dolphins, which are famous for their spins out of water and acrobatics, and usually they're you'll see them at Six Flags. The ones that jump out of the water, they jump like 10 meters off the water.
Wow.
I believe, or is it 10? I think it's 10 feet. 10 meters is pretty big. It's 10 feet. My bad.
10 feet.
10
Well, I
meters.
mean, okay, I got a ruler right here. This is 1 foot. So you're saying 10 feet, or I
Yeah.
think 10 meters might be.
You think 10 meters? Well, they can hop pretty high out of water.
I mean, this is kind of embarrassing. I mean, we both study engineering to some degree.
Yeah, our I guess range of measurement is really wonky. But and then there's the Pacific white-sided dolphin, and there's another one called the pilot whale, which you think of whale, right? How is it related to dolphins? But it is a part of the dolphin species, and yeah, they just happen to call it pilot whales. So, but yeah, so I guess this study was carried out internationally by these scientists. So I'm going to name off sort of the scientists that were part of this, and it was Dr. Padrag Duignan. I hope I don't mess up. I'm probably messing up the names, but it was chief pathologist at the Marine Mammal Center, Dr. Nahid Stevens, a veterinarian pathologist at Murdoch University, Dr. Kate Robb, and founding director, zoologist, and geneticist of the Marine Mammal Foundation. And so this was published. I guess their findings was published in the scientific reports, and the reason being is because there has been recent outbreak in Southeast Australia, which has been impacting the Burruanan dolphins, and these dolphins are a species of the bottlenose dolphins.
So they're like a subspecies, or like they're genetically related, right?
Yeah. So there's subspecies, and
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Zerks. Thank you for the follow. Really appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome to the OXTC podcast. And so where was I? Oh yeah. And so the scientists at the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito, California, and this is the largest mammal hospital in the world, and international colleagues have found this novel skin disease that has been linked to climate change. And this is groundbreaking because this is the first disease that has been seen to affect dolphin communities worldwide. So this is sort of like a big deal to the dolphin species, like globally.
Wow.
So not just in in niches, in small communities. This is gone. Hits everywhere.
It can be found like all over the world, like this skin disease.
Right.
Specifically. So you say, is it specific to that species, or is it just for like the purposes of this study? It was done on this sort of southeastern Australian species of dolphin.
So as much as I know, it's only impacting. Well, I guess the study that they talked about was the Burruanan dolphins, which is a subspecies of bottlenose. But yeah, I probably have to look more into that. Whether or not.
Why don't you drop the link in chat? I think our audience might, if they're inclined, I'd encourage them to check it out as well.
Okay, yeah. So I dropped it for anyone that wants to read more about it. And so I guess let's sort of. So now we know about the skin disease. What causes this skin disease, right? And I already said climate change. So climate change is a big factor in this. And John, would you maybe have any ideas to why climate change?
I think it's usually when they say it's climate change. I'd like to think that something in the aquatic environment, like maybe something they eat, maybe the food chain has changed, and maybe there's like an organism that naturally has this. The Is it a viral or bacterial agent that carries this skin disease? Do you know? Or
Oh, I don't know the specifics on if it's viral or like.
okay, that's fine. Because I know sometimes like especially for certain diseases, like they normally don't cross species barriers unless like there's some odd. So it's like when you say the climate change, and I would assume like okay, maybe they're eating something or they're getting exposed to something that normally is never like it never touches the dolphin's environment, but because of climate change, it's happened. That's my guess. So how close or how far was I from the actual mechanism?
Okay, so you brought up like exposed. So these dolphins are being exposed to a sort of a different environment now, and the reason being as, um, well, from climate change is that you want to guess maybe like what specific climate changing factor has been playing if.
I know ocean acidity. That's because the increased carbon dioxide levels. That definitely increases the acidity. The temperature. The temperature of the oceans rises as well.
Mhm.
That's sort of the more immediate effect. And I mean, those are the two biggest ones I can think of that affect the ocean in terms of climate change.
Yeah, so those two do play a factor, and the other one is the natural disasters, or sort of the hurricanes that happen
Oh, really?
recently because of like all the hurricanes, sort of tsunamis, all this rainfall that's been happening. Um, the fresh water, or I guess the fresh water from the rain and sort of the hurricane has caused the coastal oceans to become hyposaline, so they carry
So
more
not
water.
salty enough.
Exactly. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
hypo meaning I think if it was AP Bio, I'm remembering hypo means there's more water than there is salt. So hyposaline, more water, less salt. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, so with the decrease in salinity within coastal waters, these dolphins develop patchy and raised skin lesions. Is that correct?
Oh, lesions. Yeah,
Lesions, okay,
lesions.
across their bodies. And so yeah, they say
Wow.
it's sometimes covering up to 70% of their skin. And uh, yeah, again, it comes from hurricanes, rainfall that brought fresh
Oh,
water
wait a
to.
minute. If you say like you mentioned a change in salinity, it doesn't sound like this is a bacterial or viral thing. Then it sounds more like because it's incompatible with their body's natural environment, that their body starts to like react negatively towards this lack of salt.
Right, right. So sort of, I guess, an environmental factor or environmental impact that has taken a toll on these dolphins, and
Oh,
so
wow.
because just like humans, we're able to sort of be in an environment for a short amount of period. Let's say like really extreme hot weathers, we're able to sweat, but if we stay there for long amounts of period of time, we're not gonna be able to make it. And just like these dolphins, they can survive temporarily in hyposaline environments, but if this and this I guess new environment can be months, and they're not able to survive months in this environment. Um,
Wow. Okay.
and to give sort of like I guess a comparison of like I guess the pain level, um, they um, it, lesions are equivalent to a third degree burn.
Oh my goodness.
So, and
So yeah, just trying to imagine like what like going about your daily life with an untreated third degree or multiple untreated third degree burns. That is an absolute nightmare. Wow.
right, and yeah, and also dolphins are if I correct me if I'm wrong, but they're pretty smart. Uh,
Oh yeah, incredibly intelligent and yeah. I mean they no like the research has shown. I don't know too much about dolphins.
mhm.
Whenever anyone mentions dolphins, I think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Do you
Okay.
know that?
Wait, no. What is that?
Hitchhiker's Guide. It's like I think it's like the moment before there's like this huge calamity or like Earth is about to get like literally destroyed. All the dolphins leave, and they like the dolphins like sing this song or something, and it translates to like so long and thanks for all the fish. And like if you look at the movie, of course the book is really nice as well, but the movie is yeah. Well, Suda's obviously seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't want to spoil it, but
Okay.
for those haven't seen it, please check it out. But 42 is like it's a motif. It's a
Like
central thematic element.
okay. 42 isn't there like a number? Okay, never mind. But so there's bringing back to this is that where else has this skin disease been found? There's been significant outbreaks in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Texas, and of course Australia. So
Wow.
it's sort of hitting many different
And
places.
this climate change is causing like greater rainfall, probably abnormal amounts of rainfall, that would cause these kind of hyposaline conditions that you mentioned.
Right. And I sort of to look beyond this, like what happens if we do lose our dolphins, because of climate change. Um, so dolphins, they eat mostly fishes and squid. So I guess John, can you hypothesize what you think would happen if dolphins were to become extinct?
So I think what I'm about to say actually applies to I think any species that goes extinct. But our food chain is an incredibly complex and delicate thing. The moment you start losing species in any part of the food chain, things start to look really bad for us as well. I mean, we also consume a lot of fish and just any animal in general. I mean, that has a negative impact on us as well. Pseudo here has hypothesized shark overpopulation, which may or may not be true. Ryan, what do you have to say on that?
That could be true. That could play in factor. But yeah, no, what you said, John, is perfect. It's gonna impact the food chain, and so when it impacts the food chain, squids won't have, I guess, dolphins eating them. So if there's, I guess, an increase in squids, they're gonna eat the fishes, and if there's less fish because there's no, I guess, predator eating the squids to control that population, then we're gonna see an overpopulation in whales or maybe even sharks. Maybe Pseudo might be right about that. I'm sorry, a decrease in population of whales because whales depend on like fish, smaller fish.
I mean, whales and squid have been known to like duke it out, like they fight.
Oh, dang. Oh, okay. I think
Yeah,
I seen
whales.
like a YouTube video on like an
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some whales, like they have scars on their these whales do eat squid, but squid like they put up a really good fight. They'll like get their not tentacles, but they have like their suckers on like the whale's face, and it causes like cosmetic damage. But wow, but yeah, this is I really want to put this out to anyone listening, but that's like, even if you think of climate change and there's so many statistics showing like so many species are dying out, but you still think, oh, I can still purchase my meat for food and my vegetables. Like, sure, right now we're in a very sort of precarious time because as more things keep going extinct, that'll directly impact us more immediately. Climate change is most definitely a thing, and it's something to be reckoned with. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so there's actually a really interesting story. So this is like for a fun story. I don't know factually based if it's true or not. So this is sort of like I don't know, just throw
It's
a
like
story at you.
something off the top of your head, right?
This is actually from New York Times. This is like the article
Wow,
of this
okay.
story. But so on June 1971, Vladislavich is her last name. Her first name is Vone because it's YVONNE.
Do you want to put it in chat?
Yeah, I can't.
In case I don't know. Yeah, I know some of the.
So and they refer to as
I think it's
her.
Vladislavich. Von. Because I don't think it's like Yvonne.
Okay.
Von Vladislavich. That's a tricky name for us, unfortunately.
Okay, and they do reference they use pronouns her on the article, so I'm just gonna go based off that article. If it's wrong, or like if she went by another gender, hopefully it's forgiven. But so she was aboard this yacht and then exploded and sank in the Indiana Ocean, and she was thrown off into shark-infested waters. But when she was treading water, she noticed 3 dolphins come to her, and so one of them helped her. Stay afloat. So it was sort of the like her I don't know, her life what's it called lifesaver. And then
Okay, yeah, like lifesaver.
the other 2 were circling around because where she actually sort of fell in was shark infested. So the other 2 dolphins were circling around her, and apparently they helped her travel 200 miles of open sea
Wow.
to land
Oh my goodness.
on this marker where she eventually got helped. And yeah, so
I think it should be like pointed out though. The majority of sharks do not have the intention of eating humans, right?
Right.
The majority of sharks. I mean, it's rare instances where they mistake surfers or people swimming for prey.
Right. I think there's
then
like
you get those,
statistics of like the chances of you dying to a shark versus you getting struck by lightning and or like something something crazy
right.
like that.
It's just it's incredibly rare that people get attacked by. Although when it does happen, it's kind of unfortunate that the media over sensationalizes that incident, considering most sharks are absolutely harmless and beneficial, of course, to our food chain and to our delicate ecosystems. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, movies as like Jaws and all those shark movies.
Yeah, that's where the it's an unfortunate thing, but wow. So,
and-
and you said it's like third-degree burns,
Right.
like
So
the degree of pain.
right.
How are these dolphins even like swimming around? If I were to put myself in the shoes of a dolphin, I know, kind of silly, but like I would imagine like the moment I start having it, I would just give up. I mean, I would just
I mean, yeah, it's just
because
walking
dolphins
around.
don't have doctors, they don't have like medication, they don't have ointment or anything they can put on it, right? They have to live with it.
Right. And so this sort of is bringing that awareness that's tied to climate change for people to sort of be more aware of what's happening with our climate and why and how it's changing. And I guess to give a perspective, I guess what we've only been as Homo sapiens been around according to this is Khan Academy where I got this. So then they do cite sources, but we're dated to be first found 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. So, and that's less than 1% of the entire existence of I guess Earth. From the prokaryotes that lived like 4 billion years ago, and
It's funny you mentioned like how short humanity has been like in existence. I remember I think it was from Neil deGrasse Tyson, but it was like if you took the entirety of the history of the universe and you put it into 1 year, the time that we've existed as humans is like the minutes before New Year's Eve. That's like in relative to the whole universe. So we have been here for such a short amount of time. But
yeah, there's another analogy that goes: if you were to clip your fingernails, that's the time we've been on this Earth compared to like the rest of our body, the rest of Earth that has been here.
wow.
But yeah, that sort of wraps
See.
up my article.
How much time? Okay, let's see. We have we got usually like 8 minutes left before we would normally terminate. Ryan, how many people are watching us right now?
So
I don't have the.
So we currently have 4 viewers.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Do they have any? Let's see if they have any questions. I mean, we've been kind of blabbering away. I'm sure they might have any inquiries or questions, and if not, I don't know. Would you be down for another article or?
Yeah, I actually do have got the second article ready at my
Why
disposal.
don't you do your second? Because last time I did my second article, I don't think we did your second article.
Okay, yeah.
And just for those curious in chat or in our audience, normally Ryan and I independently look up 2 articles. One of the reasons we do that is not just for variety, but because statistically there's a chance that Ryan and I might do the same article. But if we have 2, then the chances of us potentially colliding are drastically lower. So
yeah, and this almost happened last podcast.
oh yeah,
with the
we were coming up with the right. We both almost went for that article, but I think I was able to grab that one, and Ryan chose another equally awesome article as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess let's continue. So
All right, let's
starting the third article of tonight, we have stretchable micro supercapacitors that can harvest energy from human breathing and motion. So this is
whoa, hold up. That was a mouthful.
Uh-huh.
Stretchable, like rubber band stretchable supercapacitors.
Yeah, micro supercapacitors.
Whoa, okay, micro supercapacitors.
Yeah, so that's the extra tag. So it's not just supercapacitors, not just capacitors. They're supercapacitors, and along with that, they're micro. All right, you got that, John?
I got it. Now I got it.
Okay, and so this is from the SciTech Daily, and this is by Penn State University. In a lot of these sort of articles I read, I find Penn State to be, in Michigan State, to be on there a lot for these technology ones, which is interesting. But
Well, maybe they're material sciences. I don't know how. Like it's probably like an international ranking, but considering you see them so often, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like pretty high up there in terms of rankings.
but yeah. So I guess John, since this is sort of involving humans, sort of bendable, I guess, electronics. What do you envision the future of humans and wearable technology to be at, let's say, 20 years from now?
Huh. That's an interesting. So
And
I know.
And
like,
one second. Let's see if maybe chat. You guys can also chime in what you guys think
yeah,
about that
please do.
future
I
future
mean,
thoughts.
I mean, the whole reason Ryan and I decide to host on Twitch is just so we can have that kind of interaction. So if you guys have any thoughts, like go crazy. I mean, have fun.
Go crazy.
And so I think I'll go ahead and answer what I think. So right now, wearables are I think they're a pretty recent development. Maybe the idea has probably been around for ages, but I know there are like certain problems with getting like sensor data for pulses and for things like that. I mean, we already have like some really nice stuff like the Apple Watch and I think in the future we'll be able to gather more information. I think these wearables will last longer. Like I think the Apple Watch takes like 24 hours. Like it'll last a whole day on a charge. But I think in the future they'll definitely be more longer lived and efficient. Now, one thing that I do want to I just want to bring this in is I'm a pretty cybersecurity conscious person. And the thing that I've always like had a stickling point with wearables is their security. You guys might have heard of an incident. This happened. I don't know if like last year, Ryan. I don't know if you heard about this. How a whole like military base got exposed because the soldiers were wearing fitness trackers, and like the way they're walking around, like that company got compromised or something, and then they could see the mapping of that base, which is supposed to be top secret or classified information. So,
Oh no.
so although wearables do have benefits, I can definitely see their benefit for certain health technologies. We should always exercise caution in terms of privacy and security. But that's my 2 cents. Ryan, what do you? What was your goal in asking me that, or asking the audience that?
Just throw in some fun question in there for people that I don't know, were to like for movies, I don't know, just have some fun. But that's a really good point to be aware of, I think, John, about cybersecurity.
Oh yeah,
you know.
absolutely. I mean, I think it's we put so much of ourselves online, not quite realizing just how open you are to potential attacks or vulnerabilities.
Right. Right. And it's just to be aware of that, and to realize, like you said, our data is out there and what we can do right now to prevent that. So if we get sponsored by ExpressVPN or some VPN, but anyways, so yeah, so like it sort of feels like with Elon Musk's company, what's it called?
Neuralink? I think it's called Neuralink.
Thank you. Yeah. It almost feels like we're one step away from sort of intertwining with technology to be on our body. And it's sort of, this reminds you also is that 20 years from now, we couldn't just Google things. We couldn't look up directions. We couldn't.
Oh, Ryan, I'm going to pause you real quick. If you guys saw me like typing away, I just pulled up the article about the military base and the fitness trackers. I highly encourage the chat to go ahead and if you're interested, definitely check that out. But that's like a really good cautionary tale about why you should exercise caution. With that being said, Ryan, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, and so I mean, I was just sort of reflecting of how far we progressed as in technology. Just being able to have a phone next to us, just to pull up any information we want, like at our disposable. And,
Disposal. No, you're
yeah.
right. Disposal.
And it's crazy. It's just to think that you can go from here to like Arizona and you have directions straight to there. 20 years from now, I think 20 years before you'd have to print out the map or print out the directions, and and if you were lost and you really didn't know how to use a map, you got to depend on people to show you where to go. Yeah, so it's sort of reflecting on that, on the past. Now,
the pace of tech development, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
Yeah, I mean, imagine like you mentioned, like bringing a phone to maybe our grandparents or our great grandparents. I mean, they would be dumbfounded at just how powerful this thing is.
Right. So we're super, I guess, spoiled in that way. But and also there's also bitebacks again with the host security. But anyways, the so the team of international researchers led by his English name is Larry, his Chinese last name is Chang, uh, Dorothy Quiggle, career development professor in Penn State's Department of Engineering, Science and Mechanics. Members from Penn State and Minjiang University and Nanjing University, both in China, recently published its results in nanoenergy. And nanoenergy is basically just another place where I guess faculty can upload their findings. And so, and I guess you did bring up good sort of shortcomings in wearable technology, which I did want to point out, such as battery life. Like you said, Apple Watches maybe can last a day, but you got and that's if you don't use it tremendously, I guess, throughout the day. And of course, these how stretchable, sort of, let's say, like health devices on your body can be. Let's say you're doing yoga and you stretch, and oops, you rip your, your electronic that you're wearing, and there's also, I guess, drawbacks from the article brings up that low energy density and limited. Oh yeah, again, limited stretchability. So a low energy density means, again, that like low battery life on these wearable devices.
Well, I think it's not so much like you say energy density, right? So it's like per cubic, like I say centimeter or micrometer of material. The amount of energy you can store is limited as well, fundamentally limited. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I guess let's talk about a little bit, I guess, the difference between supercapacitors and capacitors for people that are wondering, like, why is it called a supercapacitor?
Yeah.
Do you want to guess why, John?
I mean, I've been wondering that difference too, because we're both familiar about what a capacitor is, but I would assume like all a supercapacitor is kind of like a beefed up normal capacitor, just from the name. Like, it's a really stupid guess, but
No, that's exactly what it is. The before they named it supercapacitor, they named it double layer capacitor. So it's just a capacitor that's double layered, and then they said that name was like too forgettable, so they called it a supercapacitor.
What do you mean? Double layered, because like I know, like, a normal, do I even have okay, I have a little workbench to the left of me. Here are some normal, this is like a very tiny capacitor.
Oh,
so
hey.
this is two metal plates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like two plates, and then there's some dielectric. So when you say double layered, can you kind of tell our audience what that might look like? Because normal capacitors are just like two plates, and sometimes we coil them up, but it's still just like two massive plates in a very tiny area.
I've seen pictures from online. They look pretty similar to regular capacitors, except they're just they almost look like those batteries that are sort of like I guess like in a circle. I forgot what what the name
like
of
button cells.
Yeah.
Button cells.
Yeah. And they're like
that's what they.
Yeah, it's just like this, like a little pan, and then just your two.
Oh.
So it's nothing.
Okay.
It's nothing too crazy different. They are just capacitors. Yeah.
Here's another one. This is what I meant, like when I said that you have two layers, but you kind of coil them around, so it makes this kind of little cylindrical shape here for anyone watching.
Kind of reminds me of a virus.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's funny, but yeah. So okay. So I guess the pros to supercapacitors is that they have a small footprint. They're high power. They have high power density, and the ability to charge and discharge. And they have the ability to charge and discharge quickly. So you see them in batteries, like fast charging batteries, like our iPhones. I wouldn't even imagine they're in Teslas. I'm assuming with the fast charging ports.
I don't think they're super. Like, I think what happens is maybe there are some supercapacitors when you you need the instant torque, like like a very fast. But I think they still have lithium ion batteries in the floor of that Tesla.
That's right. Yeah. So you can have supercapacitors, capacitors, and you said lithium battery. They all sort of work together in order to make certain technology work, right? So yeah. So it's not like, okay, we'll use supercapacitors for everything. They're like the best, but we need all those components, right?
Because it's always a trade-off between like how much power you can deliver in any moment of time versus the amount of storage, and it's always been a historical like trade-off. Like, the more power you give in one instant, the less you can kind of store, and then vice versa. If you want more storage, well, then it might not be able to give as much juice as you'd want to instantaneously.
Mm-hmm. And a con to this though is that there are more expensive than regular capacitors. So that's also the trade-off, is that it's going to be pricey.
Oh, you mean like this existing supercapacitor?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, like
Okay.
supercapacitors in general are more expensive than regular capacitors.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so Chang and his team explored alternate device architectures and integration processes that advance micro supercapacitors to be used in wearable devices. And I guess you can sort of see like the reason why they want to use supercapacitors in wearable devices is that they can charge be like supercharged way faster than I guess normal capacitors. But of course,
they charge faster and they store more for a smaller amount of volume, right?
Right. So they have higher power density. That's for the yeah.
Gotcha.
And okay, and so they found that arranging micro they're trying to find a certain design that would allow for micro supercapacitors to be used because again, they're not bendable. So they're trying to find a design that allows that to happen. So where did I leave off? Okay, so they found that arranging micro supercapacitors cells into a serpentine island bridge layout allows the configuration to stretch and bend at bridges while reducing deformation of the capacitors. So when I say serpentine island bridge layout, do you want to break that down, John? What do you think? Like serpentine?
Try and guess. Okay,
Yeah,
so I know
bridge.
serpentine. So I'm thinking of like something wiggly. It looks like a snake, right?
Mhm.
Serpentine island. So maybe it's like two like metal strips that are like in the serpentine arrangement. So I think when you apply mechanical stress, right, like when you stretch or deform it, the actual capacitor or some arrangement of the plates will stay put, so the capacitance doesn't change, but it can withstand the deformations. That's my guess.
No, you hit that spot on. So serpentine, right? Snake-like serpent. That's sort of what first triggered my mind. Island bridges. So they had different capacitors and different islands that are connected snake in a snake-like pattern. So that way, if they are bended, they are able to sort of do its best to maintain that, I guess, their structure. And so when combined into these structures, it's also called micro supercapacitor arrays. So I thought that was pretty cool terminology.
Okay.
And okay, so how did they construct these island bridge designs? So Chang and his team used non-layered ultra-thin zinc phosphorus nano sheets and 3D laser-induced graphene foam to construct the design.
Oh, there's graphene again. I'm
Yep.
telling you, that's like it's a killer material. It's super cool stuff.
Right, and I guess you want to sort of explain graphene, why it's cool?
Sure thing. So graphene is nothing more than like a really, really, really thin layer of carbon. Pretty much like in an ideal world, it'd be like just an atom thick. And basically the idea is if I were looking top down, you would see these carbon atoms arranged in kind of hexagons. And they're just flat next to each other. Now, carbon has 4 valence electrons. And for those that aren't inclined towards chemistry, your valence electrons are the electrons that are on the outermost shell of the atom. So they're free for bonding. And in graphene, what happens is there are 3 of you have 3 bonds to other carbon atoms, but you've got 1 electron that's free. So that means that electron can actually move through the other, or can jump through the other carbon atoms, and you have like electrical conductivity. Graphene's really good at heat resistance. I think last time, I actually want to correct that from episode 4. I may have accidentally said it was heat conductive. That's wrong. It's good for heat resistance. Diamond, on the other hand, is excellent for heat conductivity, but diamond is a much different structure. But yeah, that's sort of the basic structure of graphene. And we already know from last episode, frequency multiplication is just another feature on a long list of like super cool things you can do with graphene.
Right. And I think you gave a good demonstration of, if you rub your pencils lead, and then you just take some tape and tape it off. There's graphene.
If you want to make graphene yourselves, literally you take some pencil lead and get a piece of paper, and you just like really, really like get that dark smudge on there, and get a piece of Scotch tape, put it on the paper, and gently peel, and then you sort of already have that really thin layer, and you can repeatedly do that. Like get another piece of Scotch tape and do it again, and you can get like this, really. That's arguably, I think that's what they did before. Although these days, I think we can grow graphene in a much more repeatable and scalable manner.
And so yeah, bouncing off. So yeah, they use all those good stuff, that one I just mentioned, and then so Chang integrated this system with a triboelectric nanogenerator, which is an emerging tech that converts mechanical movement to electrical energy. And so,
okay.
theoretically speaking, of course, we can harvest energy from movement of bending elbows, breathing, even speaking. Chang says, so, and
Wow.
we can use everyday motions to charge these micro supercapacitors. Is what his
So
goal
if I'm
was.
upset, does that mean I can charge my phone? Like I can just yell at my phone? Oh my goodness, this terrible piece of tech doesn't work. And then my phone will be like charged while I'm busy like flailing my arms in anger.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, theoretically speaking.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah, and then so for the future, if this is attainable, we can endlessly power our smaller devices, such as like iPhone watches, I guess maybe your AirPods, on the go. So that's sort of
be
the
like I'm already thinking about this. Like because like if I put my fingers here, you can kind of like detect your pulse, right?
right.
On your wrist, and like that, I wonder if that like small movement is enough to like generate juice for that capacitor, and in which case you could have a rudimentary watch that doesn't ever need to be recharged. That'd be really cool.
That would be really cool. Yeah, that would be. This reminds me of. I remember I had an idea of like, you have a bike. You know how when you're biking and it's cold outside, and your hands get super cold. What if you can
Right.
generate heat under your handlebars in order to warm up your hands? So
Huh.
that would be really
That would
cool.
be really nice.
So
Or pacemakers. I think like for life critical tech, like pacemakers normally need to be like replaced or recharged. I think that's how they like they send the electrical signal that makes sure your heart for those that have certain heart conditions to make sure your heart beats properly. And those in the very beginning, it's kind of crazy. Like you originally had a nuclear, like I think it was like it's plutonium powered battery in your chest. That was a thing. Like
oh
the
wow,
first gen pacemakers. Yeah. Um,
plutonium in your.
yeah, plutonium powered. Yeah.
Is that scary?
I don't know about you, but I don't want to like walk around spending my whole life with a chunk of plutonium in my chest. And of course later on they I think they moved over to like rechargeable batteries, but that means like every couple like years you have to go back to the hospital and they have to like replace that battery.
Oof.
And it's just I think it's just a nightmare. So but with that kind of technology, I wonder if like you can recycle or like maybe other parts of your body can help charge that pacemaker, which would be really nice because then you don't have to have so many invasive operations done to get that battery recharged.
Right, and this can also like maybe promote health. Going out for a run to charge your
Well, I
AirPods.
guess so.
That's like stretching it because
Yeah.
I feel like that won't actually happen
I
in
feel like
reality.
the thing with wearables, right, is like I feel like I feel like you're onto something because as soon as like Fitbit came out and like I don't know if anyone remembers this, but Nike actually made their own fitness tracker as well. I used it for a bit. I still have it, but it's like it's super. It's missing a lot of features, but
Yeah, I actually had a
but
Fitbit too.
I think when that hit the market, a lot of people were like, I want to get as much use out of this thing. So I got to like, exercise or and then I can, I can make those annoying social media posts saying like, wow, I burned like 1 million calories today. And
Look at
so
me!
I
Look
think,
at me!
right, I
Yeah.
think you're onto something. And I give credit there. Like fitness trackers for some people are actually really great to help motivate good habits and keep. But at the same time, I mean, I've mentioned this earlier, and Ryan knows this about me. I do not like that like poor cybersecurity aspect. Like I don't want my Fitbit to get compromised and then find out that like some hacker now knows my daily routine or something. That would
Be
creep me
terrible
beyond.
because he would
Yeah.
know your like where you run and what time you would run. So if you
Right.
were to do any like, I guess
They might even know like like
Yeah.
if they saw my heart and they realize like, oh, this guy suffers from some kind of bradycardia. Maybe I can use that to I don't know, like,
to
against him or
advantage.
something.
No, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great point you bring up. It's
You
kind of scary.
never know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
no,
really scary.
definitely. But I think, I mean, you put the emphasis on wearables, but I think any development in general for supercapacitors is great for all kinds of electronics. Like we mentioned Teslas, right? So I mean, the more juice you can get out faster, I mean, that's great for torque and for other automotive applications, definitely.
Yeah, because if you were to just I guess charge a capacitor really quickly, you would damage it. So that's also I guess the difference is that for
Okay,
supercapacitors,
supercapacitors,
they're able to handle that like quick charge up.
like the onset of like that massive input of energy. Oh,
Right.
okay. I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
So yeah, that sort of wraps up my article though. This if chat has any remarks, um, John, what do you think? Should we go? Want to go ahead and finish off with yours, or should we just?
Let's see. Let's see how much time we
Or
have.
does
I think
chat
we might
want
want to
to?
call it. Yeah, it's 1:15.
That's
I mean,
true.
it's 1 hour and 15 minutes into the podcast. Ryan, how many people are
Quattro,
still have their eyes on us?
quattro.
Four.
Yep.
We're still holding steady at four. All right, that is that's good. That's good to hear. Well, let's see. In that case, let's see. Let me see how long my next article is. If it's too long, I might consider. Okay, I'll go ahead and it's a short article. This was a short article, but I
Okay.
think it's still interesting to.
Let's go.
I think that
Pog champ.
we'll get our last 15 minutes on this article. So this comes from SciTech Daily, and it's there's something called the Venus Apparatus, which mimics life's first steps in outer space. It's a pretty neat piece of machinery. So Ryan, you remember? I think this was episode 1. I talked about Hayabusa 2. Do you remember what one of the missions of Hayabusa 2 was?
Just to
one of its goals?
retrieve material from the asteroid and
Right.
bring it back.
That's correct.
I
but what
forget
was like?
the specific detail though.
That's fine. That's okay. So one of the benefits of doing that kind of research is if we can see the materials from space, we can kind of get an idea of just we just like how life may have arisen on Earth. Because we there's something called abiogenesis. You can look that up, but it's the sort of idea in science that okay, you have this soup of amino acids and precursor compounds, certain amino acids or carbon compounds, and over time we still don't know exactly how, but we do know that over millions of years, eventually we got the phospholipid bilayers that we need for certain cell structures, and eventually we got prokaryotes, as Ryan pointed out earlier, and then prokaryotes eventually kind of evolved, and we have multicellular life. So being able to understand maybe how some of these reactions occur in space may give us a helpful hint as to how abiogenesis might have happened. And this device, this Venus device, is developed in COI Sergi Paris University and the Paris Observatory. And it's called Venus because it's actually a French acronym for, and forgive me if my French sounds terrible. I'm kind of embarrassed because I took a lot of French back in high school. But
That's okay.
it's the vers de nouvelles syntheses, which means towards new syntheses, and it mimics how molecules come together in the darkness of space.
Oh.
So let me go ahead and give you it's pretty crazy how they pull this off. I'm going to try and explain the mechanics of how this works real quick. So it's actually a chamber. Venus has this chamber, and it replicates the vacuum of space. So the temperature is set to negative 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And I thought it was interesting that this article, this science article, decided to use Fahrenheit as its unit of measurement, considering Celsius is usually more common in the physical sciences. But then again, this article might have been targeted towards American readers who are more familiar with the Fahrenheit scale. And basically, so in this super cold chamber, it's 10 Kelvin. They use 5 beams, and they're not really laser beams. I'm not quite sure what they are. They're like literally molecular beams. They put these molecules onto a tiny chunk of ice without disturbing the environment. So it's not even like a human has to go in there and use a pipette, but it's these literal beams that carry the molecules and put them onto that piece of ice.
Wow. So wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a pretty hardcore piece of machinery.
Yes. So
Venus.
instead of using normal pipettes, they use laser. You said.
It's a kind of okay. The research paper was super dense for me. I think what they're using is some kind of maybe they vaporize the compound, and then they can use like the vapor and get like singular molecules on at a time. I think this is what they mean by beam.
Wow.
But once again, I'll go ahead and drop the link for those in chat. At the very bottom of that article, you should see. Here we go. You should see the actual research paper, but it is a pretty dense read. But I do want to give huge kudos to the American Institute of Physics for making that research paper free, because I hate paywalls. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. And for those of you that like there's a good paper and it's paywalled, I want you guys to know that not a single penny actually goes to the researchers.
Yeah, which is tragic because researchers need funds.
Money. Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like, I don't know what the exact number is, but the majority of time, like, they have to beg institutions or wealthy people for money to do science that could potentially be life-saving, that could further our understanding of the universe and nature. So when you see those websites that are like, oh, pay like $50 for this paper, just remember, not a single penny actually goes to the wonderful team that made the paper. It all goes to the publishing company. It's a super terrible configuration. Yeah. But that's something's got to change sooner or later. But
yeah, it's like reality.
So
damn.
Yeah, but anyway, so Emmanuel. I hope I'm saying his name right. Emmanuel Conju. So this got published in the American Institute of Physics Review of Scientific Instruments, and he says that this machine, as I mentioned earlier, it replicates how molecules form on the ice that sits on tiny dust particles in interstellar clouds. So that's why there's that kind of, I had to mention the sliver of ice. So you have the substrate. Oh, and speaking of which, that ice isn't like, they don't put the ice in. The machine is capable of like making a precise piece of ice. Like it's machine to specification. It's crazy. Crazy accurate.
Wow. I want to see what the machine looks like now.
It looks like, well, from the picture, like if anyone, a lot of those machines, they're like coated in a lot of like, it looks like aluminum foil, but the foil is there to kind of, I think, temperature control the device. And do you remember when I talked about alpha? Do you remember that, Ryan?
Oof, yeah.
The fine structure, or Sommerfeld's constant. It almost reminds me of the machinery they used to predict or to calculate Sommerfeld's, the value. Mm-hmm. It had to be super precise. And I think I told you later on, like they found out that at least one of the two teams is wrong, because two teams tried to get the value of alpha, or the fine structure constant. And they found out like one of them, they don't know who it is though. So there's still this team in Paris and the team in California are trying to figure out like, okay, who, it's almost like the Spider-Man meme. Like the two Spider-Men are pointing at each other.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So, but basically, and he even says that the machine is capable of doing in the lab in one day what would take literally thousands of years in space.
Holy moly.
Yeah, 1,000 years of just drifting through interstellar space, and we have the technology, like that SpongeBob clip, where like I think they stained like Mr. Krabs' like first dollar, and Patrick like has the audacity to take a computer and like smash the poor thing on the, like, we have technology. But I digress. It's just it comes through my mind when I think of that phrase. We have the technology. But over 50 years. Oh no, go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
No, I was saying wow.
Over 50 years, scientists have identified 200 different molecular species in star-forming regions of space, and some of these are considered prebiotic species. So these molecules are considered the precursors to life here on Earth. That's
wow. That's pretty deep.
And yeah, absolutely. And the paper itself, they're really keen on working with the James Webb Telescope. Have you heard of that one?
Nope.
The Webb Telescope. So that's supposed to launch next year. It will be in the history of humanity's space exploration and research. It will be the most powerful and the largest telescope that mankind has ever put into space. It's intentionally meant to usurp Hubble, which a lot of people do know about. and hopefully, fingers crossed, the James Webb Telescope will not be plagued by so many problems. Like Ryan, have you heard the story behind like the Hubble fiasco?
Nope.
So the Hubble Space Telescope, when it first launched, had a really, really huge and embarrassing problem. And you know how like telescopes need like really good mirrors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Hubble telescope is not small. Like it's a pretty massive like satellite, so it's got a pretty big mirror as well. And that mirror has to be like ground down and smooth to like precise specifications. And what turns out happened is they launched, and the pictures came back, blurry.
Oh,
Like
no.
imagine spending millions of dollars on this telescope,
Oh,
and the
man.
pictures come back looking like someone took them on
On a potato?
an yeah, like a Samsung S2 or something. Like the quality was awful, and you know NASA was a national embarrassment because we spent millions of taxpayer dollars on this machine, and the pictures were. And it turns out what happened is when they were manufacturing the mirror, and the mirror is like the heart of the telescope. You have a bad mirror, you're done for. It turns out when they were like grinding that mirror down, the sensor they were using was off. There was like a hardware error. For those that are curious, do look up like the Hubble telescope mirror error. They had like a huge investigation on this, and it was like but it was a huge fiasco. But what's really cool, and I think this like is a huge testament to NASA's capability for space research, or not just NASA, but like human ingenuity, is they made corrective optics. Like they launched these corrective optics, and they had astronauts physically install new hardware into Hubble. So now Hubble works fine. We have these absolutely gorgeous images of space. But keep in mind, like, you know, and the error on that mirror was off by a hair, like a human hair. That was how much the error was in like the mirror's configuration. It was like literally a hair off. And it ruined everything. So,
I mean, that goes to show that even though you're like you think everything's gonna go to like you have every piece planned out, something shows up that you just
right,
didn't take into account. Something as small as that laser that you brought up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they were using, I think they were using a new piece of hardware to do like, there's a tool that like glides on the surface of the mirror, and it lets the engineers know like whether or not the curvature is correct. And I think what happened is that hardware got jammed, so it reported the wrong value when really they were actually like pretty off in terms of the. But hope so. I'm the reason I bring it up is I'm really hoping that James Webb, the Webb telescope, does not have these problems, because it's, you know, the Webb telescope is designed to be I think it is the largest telescope we will have ever launched. And I think the Webb telescope, because I'm not too familiar with telescope optics, but there are like two options. You can have a really big mirror, or you can have a bunch of like different, like I think like, you know, multiple mirrors paneled together. And Webb is that like multiple smaller mirrors that are paneled together.
Oh wow!
Because
oh man, I wonder if that's gonna like increase the errors, because it's like, but maybe not. Maybe you have many smaller pieces that add up to one big piece.
yeah, I think it's manufacturing is easier too, because they're small. Like the bigger the mirrors get, it gets like, you know,
Yeah,
because
that
you
makes
have to
sense.
imagine you build the massive mirror and you got to transport that on a car or by
Mhm.
sea, and it's got to be like if
Right.
so much as a single scratch happens, you got to toss that mirror. It's useless to you.
Yeah, that's smart. That's really smart to think of like the smaller pieces, and then yeah, it sounds like it's much more easy to ship because you can stack them maybe in a cargo or
I don't
something.
even know if I would not want
Yeah,
to stack them.
I know. Yeah, I'm just like guessing. But that's cool.
But
That's like series, you know, all these tiny, finite, I guess, uh,
yeah.
pieces come together and make that
You
big
can
mirror.
find it in radio telescopes too. So, like you talked about, I think one of our very first episodes was about Arecibo, Arecibo, right? Is that the proper
Arecibo.
pronunciation?
Yeah,
Arecibo. Okay, about Arecibo, and there are other radio observatories that aren't like Arecibo's one big dish,
Mhm.
but there are other ones in the U.S. that are like actually multiple satellite dishes, and they're all lined up, and
Oh,
together they create like one massive radio telescope.
that's really cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So But yeah, I think it's cool we have this device on Earth, Venus.
So
We
that's the
can
name,
do-
Venus, right? That's
Yeah,
the
Venus. That's
okay.
the acronym. And
Cool.
it can do in the lab a 1 day what would take in space 1,000 years. I think that's a really bold claim. So
Right. Oh my gosh.
we should. I think we'll call it a night.
All right. Yeah. Woo. All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning
right.
in on tonight's podcast at the 0x2C. And this is Ryan signing out.
Yep. And this is John. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful night.
Bye.